At 10, this is Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
And we begin tonight on the weather. Calling today windy is another understatement, with strong gusts causing power outages all across the state. Thanks for joining us here at 10. I'm Brent Harden.
And I'm Bridget Bjorlo. Glad you're with us tonight. Crews with Eversource were hard at work throughout the afternoon, and they're still out there this evening. At its peak, about 1% of the roughly 1.3 million customers Eversource had their lights go out throughout the day.
But in many cases, once power was restored in one community, another would lose it, leaving crews chasing outages across the state. And we'll talk more about those outages in just a moment. But first, let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Rachel Frank. So, Rachel, the gusts going to last through the night, or is the worst of this behind us at this point?
The worst is definitely over. That being said, you may still hear the wind roaring here for the next couple of hours or so, but a lot more manageable. We've got gusts between 25 to about 35 miles per hour. Earlier today, we had gusts up between 40 and 50. And notice the trend here for gusts is to continue to slowly come down, especially as we head towards daybreak tomorrow. So there is a wind advisory still in effect until 1 a.m. for the northern half of the state, just to warn people that there could be a few additional isolated outages. But as I mentioned before, I think the worst is over. Low temperatures tonight falling back into the 30s. We'll see clear skies overhead and diminishing winds. By the time you wake up tomorrow morning, still a bit brisk out there. Winds out of the west at 5 to 15. Temperatures in the 30s and lots of sunshine. That sun is going to take us right through the day tomorrow. So we are happy not only to diminish the wind, but also to see a milder day, really comfortable. We're near 50 degrees as we head towards lunchtime, and we're looking at high temperatures in the mid to upper 50s as we head through the afternoon. So it's warmer tomorrow, but it will get warmer still for Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to talk about how long this drier stretch of weather will last and how much warmer it gets. Your full forecast coming up.
All right, Rachel, thank you. Today's high winds causing problems all across the state. As we said, namely in the form of power outages. Thousands of Eversource customers have spent much of the evening in the dark as repairs crews race to get the power restored.
And Fox 61's Jake Garcia live for us tonight in Hartford with the latest on the efforts to get the lights back on and other struggles people were facing due to the wind. Good evening, Jake.
Good evening, Brent and Bridget. I can tell you that as of this hour, Eversource still has about 4,000 customers without power tonight. Here in Hartford, the winds have come down, not as windy as they were earlier today. Those strong winds causing headaches for thousands of people across the state. Gusty winds wreaking havoc all across the state, from downtown Hartford to Middletown. While some Connecticut residents had to pick up the pieces from damages caused by falling trees, thousands were left in the dark due to downed power lines. In Middletown, Arbutus Street had to be closed in both directions for hours as crews began work to restore power that could last throughout the night, leaving many in the neighborhood to dust off their generators.
I have a generator that wasn't working, and so he called a neighbor, and now we have another generator, and that neighbor's on the way, so we can hopefully get power to the house.
For Perry and his family, this is more than just a few hours without the lights.
And at some point, it doesn't work, so right now my basement is flooded. Everything that's down there is probably thousands of dollars that's going to be gone just because we don't have electricity.
Leaving decades of family memories in several inches of water. All while trying to get the power back on in the house and the sub pump working again. Power outages lasted well after sunset in Windsor as drivers encountered streets with traffic lights still out at several intersections. As many homes across town were still in the dark, but Eversource crews across the state working well into the night in order to restore power. And several minutes ago, I got an update from Perry, who said that about 9:30, they finally got their lights back on and were able to start pumping out all that water from the basement. Now, some of the longest restoration times right now are in the Canton area and in Middletown. In Canton, some residents are expected to have their power back on by midnight. In Middletown, several customers won't get their power restored until later tomorrow morning. Reporting live in Hartford, Jake Garcia, Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
All right, Jake, thank you. Hopefully it'll just happen as quickly as possible. Over half a decade after her husband was found dead, a Connecticut woman says she was the one who killed him. Linda Cosada Bigazzi is accused of killing Pierluigi Bigazzi during a fight in their Burlington home back in 2017. When officers found his body 6 months later, she told them it was self-defense. While police were investigating his death, they said Linda had collected her husband's paychecks from Yukon Health in a joint account. She has pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and first-degree larceny. She'll be sentenced on June 28th.
A second suspect has been arrested in connection to the deadly shooting of a member of the Connecticut National Guard and her 11-year-old daughter. Massachusetts State Police posting on X this evening stating Dejan Belnavis was taken into custody in San Diego. Again, he was last seen in Hartford last week. The shooting happened last Tuesday in the middle of the day in Worcester, Massachusetts. Chastity Nunez and her daughter Zella were found dead inside their SUV. Again, this happened in broad daylight. Police say two people were spotted running from that SUV and into a white car that was found later in Hartford. 28-year-old Carel Manguel was arrested in Worcester on armed assault to murder and gun charges. He appeared in court last week.
Glastonbury police are still investigating this evening after a 76-year-old man drove a car through the front of a store in Somerset Square. Take a look here at a picture captured by security cameras. The car crashed through the front of the Munson's chocolate store around 2:45 this afternoon. The store was open at the time, but thankfully people inside and the driver did not report any injuries. The building is now being evaluated for structural damage.
Emotional testimony from victims of so-called fertility fraud at the state capitol today. They say their fertility doctors used their own sperm without their patients' consent. That's what Janine Pearson says happened to her. And since taking a DNA test in 2022, she says she has found more than 22 half-siblings across the state. Currently, there is no law against fertility fraud in Connecticut, but advocates are pushing leaders to pass a bill to change that.
I'm in constant fear that anyone I know could be my half-sibling, and it has forever changed how I feel about placing trust in medical providers.
We trusted the doctors completely, never thought that he would betray his Hippocratic oath to do no harm and betray his patients.
My high school boyfriend is actually my half-brother.
Some are concerned this would infringe on access to fertility treatments overall, but advocates say the bill was crafted with highly specific language to avoid that problem.
Day 6 of the trial of Trooper Brian North is now in the books, and it was a short one for the jury. They were sent home early, but not before the defense called another witness to the stand.
Trooper North has been charged with manslaughter in connection to the shooting death of Mubarak Suleiman back in 2020. Fox 61's Julia LeBlanc has today's breakdown from Milford.
Do you know Trooper Brian North?
I do.
The defense calling Trooper First Class Craig Bresniak to the stand, a tactical coordinator with the Connecticut State Police.
Did you train Brian North?
I did.
Trooper Brian North joined the tactical unit in November of 2019. Bresniak's testimony focused on the unit's training, digging into the firearms portion.
Is there training relative to the number of shots fired?
So we don't prescribe a number of shots fired for anybody.
Bresniak says troopers even train on shooting in and around vehicles, like in this case, where prosecutors say North fired through the driver's side window 7 times, hitting 19-year-old Mubarak Suleiman. Bresniak says in a scenario like this one, troopers may shoot more for accuracy, making reference to a game of catch through a window.
The likelihood that that ball would go directly towards that catcher's mitt is very, very unlikely. At which case I'd probably throw a couple balls to create a larger hole and then get that accurate throw to you.
In cross-examination, Inspector General Robert Devlin pointing this out.
You have 1-round drills that you do?
There are some, and generally those drills work on. So
that's a yes or no answer, sir. Do you have 1-round drills?
There are 1-round drills.
Later in the afternoon, the attorneys took up a motion connected to the next 2 witnesses the defense plans on calling to the stand. Experts originally hired by the state's attorney's office in 2022 for an opinion on whether North's actions were justified. But that happened before Devlin was in charge of the Inspector General's office. So he wanted that fact to be admitted.
I had nothing to do with hiring these people. I didn't select them. I didn't critique their credentials before they were selected. And to put on me, you know, their opinions, I think is unfair.
I think that's incredibly relevant to know that the state sought an opinion. They received 2 opinions finding justification, and they're disregarding them.
Now, the judge ultimately ruled in favor of the state, agreeing that when those 2 witnesses take the stand, which is expected to happen tomorrow, their prior relationship with the state's attorney's office should not be mentioned. We are in Milford. Julia LeBlanc, Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.